Welcome back to another episode of the Less Than Scarious podcast. Today we're talking about horror video games and horror media in general, I would assume. If you haven't watched the supplementary episode, I played PT for the first time, first horror game in forever. It's been a long time.
He got off easy.
So once again, we have our special guest, Reuben.
Yeah, hi.
John Maniacal is out again this week. So I'm Billy. We've got...
I'm Josh.
Yeah, you got Reuben here.
And Jack.
So you guys have all played PT before, right?
Correct.
You've
Yeah,
all put
except for you.
reasonable
you
hours into it. I played it for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
PT meaning playable trailer, an excellent PS4 thing that happened and then didn't happen.
Like you guys said,
essentially.
like I wasn't scared, but it was very like anxious feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Like
It's very
feel it
anxiety.
in your chest. Like I was ready for something to happen.
I felt it in my butthole.
If you watch the
It's-
video, I did at least a decent jump the first time the ghost got me.
Yeah, the girl came out.
I gave a small jump.
Me too.
Oh man, I was so sad. I missed my opportunity to get you.
Yeah.
Oh, I was waiting for the
You
perfect
tried.
time, and
You
I just
tried.
got greedy. That's my mistake.
Yeah, I looked back to talk. I think I was looking back to like talk to Reuben about something, and I was like,
Like the longer I sat on the floor, the more that I realized I was probably giving something away because I was no longer talking in the background. So I was like, "Fuck, just something pop out."
I really wasn't paying that much attention to you all talking. Like I heard you like mumbling to each other, but I wasn't really paying attention. Like the game was so like it had my focus so much, I wasn't really paying attention.
Yeah.
So it's
Go ahead.
the evolution of games that are scary. I feel like PT is probably the pinnacle of video game media that is horrifying. Everybody's looking at me because I'm super fucking drunk.
So,
No,
all right.
I mean, I agree. I agree. Like,
Where's
it's-
my electronic cigarette?
That's one of the creepiest games that I ever played. I was never like I never focused on playing horror games or anything. I wasn't like a huge fan of the horror game genre, but some of the games that I played that creeped me out really bad. Like PT was definitely up there. Fatal Frame is always going to forever
It's pretty
scar
scary.
me.
It's pretty scary.
Because Fatal Frame, just at the time, whenever that game came out, and the state of horror games at the time, like there was not a game really that I ever played anyway that put you in a situation where you went through and experienced all this crazy, horrifying, ghostly shit that you had no control over and you had no way to defend yourself. All you could do was take pictures of it.
What?
That was like the
was
only
that, was
way.
that a console game?
PS2.
Yeah, it was on PS2 and
pretty old.
Xbox. I played it on Xbox, but it was, I think it was a lot harder to find on Xbox. I think even one of the games that released for PlayStation didn't even come out on Xbox, if I remember correctly.
It was
I'm not
very
sure.
Japanese.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you were a Japanese girl.
Right.
I'm pretty sure in the first one. Like, it was a very Japanese game, so it was very much, a no-brainer. that
I
it
think
was a
they
PlayStation.
re-released them on Wii or Wii U, one
Yeah.
of those two.
Oh, did they?
Probably.
Yeah, to take
Because it had
advantage of the
motion
Switch
controls.
controls. Yeah, the
yeah.
motion controls.
I do remember seeing that. But there's a bunch of Fatal Frames now.
Yeah,
Like
that
5 or something.
That game was creepy as
It's
fuck.
worth
though.
it.
Whenever it probably wouldn't hold up now because the graphics aren't as
So I mean,
ridiculous.
like
but-
rewind back to the first game that made you scared. What would that be?
Resident Evil 2.
That's
I
just a
I
pretty
watched my
scary
cousin
game.
play it on PlayStation. And like the very first part when you're in the police department and the liquor,
Yeah,
I think it shows a cutscene too.
and I think a lot
Like a
of
really
I think a
shitty
lot of
cutscene.
people have that. Like
Isn't that
you're walking through, and then you go to the hallway, and then the video sequence triggers of the liquor on the ceiling.
I had nightmares for like weeks.
Yeah.
Isn't that the
And I didn't even
first-
play it.
Didn't they introduce Nemesis in that game?
That was 3.
That was 3? Okay. That was horrifying.
But it was also
That was
like
horrifying.
around the police
That was the
department.
horror movie.
Like it
Yes.
happened too. And 3 runs concurrent, correctly?
I'm
Am I
not sure.
correct? It
I'm
runs
not sure.
concurrent too.
I think that's a good way to start though, with what horror games scared the living crap out of you. So for you, Fatal Frame, for you, Resident Evil 2. For me, I wouldn't say like the things in my youth that scared me. In my I guess my adult prime, the things that scared me, Dead Space, the first one. They pulled off that atmospheric horror like the first part of the game. I was like, what's happening? And then the necromorph tries to get in the elevator with you, and I shit my pants. Nope. My little brother and I were switching off, and we had the lights off. It was like such a ghetto PC setup, but that game was just too much. Admittedly, it got super easy after a while, but just... Oh, I mean,
playing with the lights off in general is something that can really make a game go from kind of scary to really fucking scary. And like a perfect example of that is I was playing fucking what was the name of that? It was a zombie game that came out on consoles and stuff a few years ago.
Dying Light?
Huh?
Dying Light?
Dying Light.
That's a good...
That's exactly what I
gosh.
played.
No comment.
I played that. I like set up my shit to be at a standing desk, and I had my monitor and stuff, and I was standing up while I'm playing this game, and turned the lights out and shit, and was playing Dying Light, and that wasn't like during the daytime. It was fine.
Yep.
But at night, dude, shit gets out of control in that game. I don't know if you guys have played that.
Yes.
I don't think so,
dude. That shit gets scary.
I'm gonna build on
at
that.
Night. And
I beat. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm like wearing these like 7.1 head, like a 7.1 headset and shit, and standing up and I'm like freaking out, like walking in place and shit, trying to, dude, it freaked me out, and that was just like 4 years ago or something.
So last year,
I was a grown ass man.
I got all the way through that game. I beat all the daylight missions, and then they're like, now you got to do a nighttime mission. I'm like, nope.
Yeah,
I hard quit that game. I was done. I already put like 30 hours into it, and I'm like, nope, no, you're not making me doing that. That's awful.
But then there's like the distinction between atmospheric horror and jump scare horror. Like PT, that was a very atmospheric horror.
Yeah, and that shit gets my respect a lot more than the jump scare
definitely
horror, for sure.
Definitely.
Jump scares are easy. Like,
oh yeah,
playing Dark Souls, like I don't recall specifically, but I know there were parts where I was like, fuck, like just little jump scares or something you're not expecting happens.
Yeah. I mean, you could say like current gen American horror, like movies are all pretty much jump scares, whereas like video games are trying to kick back to that atmospheric horror, and it's almost to a traumatizing degree, like too much. Like when is too much? And I would even kick it off that Resident Evil 7 going to VR is too much. I don't want to see that shit on my face.
Yeah, I've never played it. Never intend to play it. VR.
Did you play it in
that
VR?
shit's ridiculous.
Reuben?
So once I saw the game, I thought about it, and I'm like, this might be worth buying. But even seeing just people play the game and seeing what it has in it, I'm like, I don't want to have my own head cut off. Like that's seeing that like visually in VR. Like I don't need that.
It adds that whole other level of scary that you're completely cut off from the real world. Like if you're immersed that much, like I know, Jack, yours is like the full headset. Like you can be completely immersed and not know what's going on around you.
Right.
Adds a whole other level to the terror.
Yeah, that just like adds to our irrational. That like just shows how irrational our animalistic instincts can be to a certain degree, because even though we know 100% when we put this thing on our face, we know we're safe in our friend's home. But like, even though you're wearing this thing and you're playing a horror game, there's something like that's embedded deep within us that is animalistic, and we see something threatening coming at us to kill us, even though it's completely digital and we understand that.
Dude,
it still freaks us the fuck out.
VR,
that's insane.
VR takes it to a whole nother level. And for a while, after I got my VR set up, it was, I need to find games that are horrifying. I need to play them. And then after like 3 or 4 of them, I was into them like a couple minutes, and it was like, no, I can't do this. This is too horrifying. I can't do it. It's too real. And so, yeah, it really invokes some type of fear inside of you, some sort of animalistic, just fight or flight that you can't deal with. As far as VR goes, fuck VR horror. Can't do that.
No,
it's too real.
I'd rather stick to the VR porn, please.
Yeah, VR porn or nothing.
And then you can't even run without like clicking like, oh fuck, it's coming. Oh no.
Away on the D-pad. It won't stop.
Yeah.
I won't stop.
Yeah, like Emily Wants to Play. That was the VR that was one of the first VR games I played. You're like, hey Billy, here's a fun game. Play this.
That's because
I've
Emily's a
never-
fucking
regrets.
bitch.
That's
I've never made it because, like, all the strategy is like, play the game. If she scares you, just stare at her. And I've done that, and it doesn't work. She just still kills you or
Yeah.
whatever. It's
You
horrifying.
You just prolong the inevitable.
I'm
Whenever
gonna
you do
be in
that.
this dark, big ass house that I could never afford in real life. That feels like real life.
So-
And there's a horrifying little doll.
Did
that
you
will kill
ever
me.
get past more than just one ghost?
No, I got to the basement.
Well, I think you can unlock the basement and pretty like
Yeah,
anytime.
probably.
Well,
And
there's
then
you can get up to there's four. So there's
Four
four ghosts that you
dolls?
have to deal with.
Ghosts?
Four,
No.
yeah, doll ghosts. Yeah, there's four of them you have to deal
no,
with.
I dealt with the first one.
And they
I'm out.
each have different things. Like the first one you have to stare at it till it goes away or whatever. And there's one that you can't look at. And there's one that you have to stand still. And
You have
there's
to
one you have
stand
to run
still,
from.
put your arms on your head, and dolls are scary. But I think what we were getting at is the evolution of horror games. And as a kid, like Resident Evil was probably the pinnacle of everything that was scary about games, or Fatal Frame
Yeah.
for you, Josh.
Yep.
But it's evolved into like VR and just it's psychological terror. I mean, they take
The graphics are so good.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
so
it's
much easier to be
disturbing.
immersed, especially in a first person perspective.
Yeah, I wonder if I was the age I am now, whenever I originally played like Fatal Frame and all those games that freaked me out, if they would they have scared me as much then?
probably.
Well,
Because
on a similar note, like I remember playing Fatal Frame when it came out on like PS2. I remember renting it, and me and my brother played it, and we were not scared.
I guess I'm just a pussy.
Like I don't know what it was, but it didn't scare us. I don't know if it was maybe just like a
Well, you were talking.
teammate type thing. Like we were there together, like playing it. I think you
Yeah.
mostly played and I watched, but
Yeah.
Even as
I
like
don't
a
remember being
kid,
scared.
like games like the original Warcraft scared me as like a child. yeah, laugh it up. Diablo legit scared me. The first Diablo 2 not so much. Diablo 2 they kind of like cartooned it up, but Diablo 1 was horrifying. Like you went down into hell and you fought Diablo, and that dude was teleporting
Fight
everywhere.
Satan in this game.
And like demons were all over the place, and the music was traumatizing. But you know, people like worked past that. Me, I didn't. I was traumatized. I couldn't do it. But it became like this fan fiction, amazing game. You got past it. Games like Fatal Frame and games like Resident Evil were built to just horrify you.
See, but do you think that if you would have played those games for the first time, if you were the age you are now when those games came out, like, do you think they would have scared you as much?
So let's be fair. Diablo 1's music is atmospheric to like a T. Like whatever they did, even now thinking of it in my mind, it's just horrifying. It's like if you think of what the pits of hell sound like, Diablo 1 is all right. It's kind of hard to make that stretch that it's similar, but it's similar to me. That's what hell sounds like. So
Yeah.
when you're digging that deep down into fight Diablo himself,
Damn.
that's the music you're hearing. That's the sound you're hearing. So no, I wouldn't be scared, but
Yeah.
I would tie that closer than any other game out right now.
Maybe that's just because, like, going to church for me when I was a kid was way, like, that scared
you
the
church
that
weirdo.
scared the
Could be.
shit out of
Yeah.
me to begin with, because I thought because I woke up and had a boner that I was gonna go to fucking hell. That's what I was taught to believe. Like, you had a boner.
No.
What's wrong with you? You Satan worshiper.
Really?
I mean, so
Dude,
like,
I grew up-
really? Were you scared of boners?
Well, no, not. I mean, that was a little bit of an exaggeration, but I grew up Pentecostal,
He's scared
and
of
I don't know
boners.
how much you know about the Pentecostal faith,
They
but those people are
dinner
fucking
skirts.
crazy.
It is violently Christian,
Yeah,
is all I
it's-
know.
Right,
Or
and it's
not violently, aggressively Christian.
it's 100% hellfire, brimstone, that kind of shit. I mean, you've seen Borat, right?
Yeah.
The church
awkward
that
dude.
Borat goes into, and they're all speaking in tongues and being crazy, and he just goes up there and is like la 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 la, like that whole shit. That's Pentecostal, 100%. Those people are outside their minds, and that's the shit that I grew up learning about.
Siblings?
I do.
Brothers?
They're
Sisters?
older. Yeah, they didn't go to church with us.
Your sisters?
No sisters. 2 older brothers.
Did your mom wear like the denim skirt?
Oh yeah,
thing?
and she still does. Everyone that goes to that church is like total long, super long skirts and really long undone hair and all that jazz. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like growing up, going
Pentecostal?
growing up into that shit, like kind of like I was always hardwired to be afraid of hell and that kind of stuff, obviously, but. I don't know. It's really hard to get back into that same frame of mind anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like my mom was kind of religious, but like I thought the D&D 3rd edition book looked cool, but we couldn't have it because of the the satanic panic.
Right.
Yeah.
And like that was still like hardwired in her, so like we couldn't do it. Like Diablo, like my brother got it and he had to like hide it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I wasn't allowed. Like Harry Potter was a clear no because it was fucking witchcraft and shit.
Oh, okay.
Listen to this.
So,
if you think that's bad, I wasn't allowed. Like, well, I mean, I did it anyway, but Pokemon was like considered to be something horrible because it stood for pocket monsters, and just the fact that it had something to do with monsters freaked people out that are super crazy.
can't
I
believe
just
that,
knew
man.
kids like that growing up, but I've never. Josh, you're like a science experiment now.
Yeah.
I can't believe. So you grew up Pentecostal.
Yep.
My parents didn't give a fuck what. I mean, there was no enforcement of any kind. Like anything that I wanted to do was fine. So, Josh, Pentecostal. Reuben is agreeing with a lot of things you're saying. Did you grow up any kind of religion?
I grew up Catholic. I actually have a funny story to tell you guys. It's kind of a horror story for a kid.
Right.
So it's my brother's birthday, my little brother. Pokemon, the first Pokemon Blue and Red were coming out. He gets Pokemon Blue on release date. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, he got Pokemon Blue. I really want Pokemon Red. But I didn't get it. So I threw the biggest bitch fit. The biggest, I mean, what kid wouldn't have like the most insane, aggressive frustration for that Pokemon? From like the flip side, I was so mad. Of course, my parents were mad at me, but they went and got it for me anyways. But
That's the end of the story.
So I grew up Catholic. I grew because I went to what was called as Wednesday school or Sunday school, where I had to go in and listen to like the preachings of the Bible and whatnot.
Right. You learn all the catchy little songs.
Yeah, I learned all the songs.
Yeah.
I almost had my confirmation, but then for some reason I got to skip it, and my parents stopped caring about that stuff. It became less important. Not that they weren't religious or anything anymore, just more things were important. So I kind of distanced myself from it too. And when you force that stuff on your child, it becomes kind of like a frustration for them. They don't care about it because it's being forced in such a violent manner. So
it's fucked up.
Who cares that you're
We don't have to beat around the bush. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's fucked up to force religious belief on your kids.
It is.
My grandparents were very involved in their church, and when we were really little, my mom was more involved, and like we went most Sundays, like under the age of definitely 10, probably 8 or so. And I just remember them, like I remember like asking questions like, this doesn't make sense to me. And then like I remember hearing my grandma like tell my mom like, we should focus more on Billy's brother because he's more religious. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah,
I've been written off for asking a couple
messed
questions,
up, dude.
like,
Yeah,
little
like
kid questions. Like,
it's messed up, man. I mean, like you get forced into this way of thinking, and for me, it seriously messed my world up whenever I grew older and started to think about like logical shit. Like, what do you mean you can't split a Red Sea just by waving your hand? What do you mean the whole world didn't get flooded and like all this crazy, like for me to, I don't know, coming to grips with getting over what I had been force fed my whole life was something that I struggled with for a long time, and it was not easy. It was tough to get over.
I never had that. I was never a religious. So
I feel like
Billy,
that's something
Josh,
that you could be
Reuben,
thankful for,
you've
honestly.
all been involved in a family that was like religiously focused.
Only
Right.
for a while.
Yeah,
For
for
a
a
while.
while here too.
Zero. None for me.
So
But-
what's your I'm kind of interested to know about your point of view, because I feel like for me specifically, it was tough to start to learn that what I've been force fed my whole life was essentially bullshit.
There just wasn't a thing. There wasn't a thing for me to digest for me to think about. That's bullshit. There was zero.
He just did not think about it.
I just didn't have it.
That sounds fucking awesome.
I've never been to church once. I've never been to a church thing. I don't know what it's called. A session, I guess. A
sermon,
A sermon.
a service.
And
hour
I've
of your
just
life.
never. And even when we got married, like I didn't know.
yeah.
What do? Do we just found a guy on Craigslist or something? You know?
I mean, that was one thing that
I've just
I
never had that.
I mean, I grew up very religious, but I like worked through that shit, and that was one thing that I was adamant about when we got married, is that I did not want it to be remotely religious. Like, if
Wow.
there was something
Understandable.
religious, it was so minuscule that it was almost unnoticeable.
So you had it, didn't want it. Okay.
So we all have, I think, roughly the same opinion on religion. Like, we're not religious.
I think so.
Can we agree that religious horror movies are some of the better horror movies?
What are you talking about? What's a religious horror movie?
Like
Exorcist.
Exorcist.
The
Exorcist.
Conjuring movies.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
I feel like those
probably.
are really good horror movies.
they are good, yeah.
Like you,
Prob-
like you don't even have to like believe in that kind of stuff, but it kind of like pulls you into it. Like, oh God,
Yeah.
Satan's coming to get us.
Right.
That's true.
I mean, personally, my favorite horror movie that I've experienced is probably The Shining. That's something that I saw at a younger age that I always loved. Even though probably one of the weirdest horror things that I've dealt with even to this day is I still somewhat regularly, like once every few months, will have a nightmare where there's a nuclear bomb that goes off in the distance, and I'm watching the bomb go off, and
war never ends.
yeah, but like the shit is coming at me, and I get blasted and fucking vaporized, and that all originated from Terminator.
Yeah.
The Terminator
2
movie.
fucked me up too.
T2, yeah. And I have dealt with that. I watched that whenever I was probably, I don't know, like 9 or 10 years old or something. And I've had nightmares about that shit that is so ridiculous.
The scene where she's holding on
Yeah,
to
on
the
the
fence.
fence, yeah.
Just, blah, just get
100%.
blown away.
I
get
still have that shit.
Have you guys played Dead by Daylight?
No.
I haven't. I've
So-
seen people play it, but I haven't played
I'll
it.
give you a quick premise. Essentially, like one player plays the killer, and then I think 4 or 5 players play survivors, and the killer just chases them.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
It's like
becomes
a
like
video
a-
game 80s slasher
Yeah,
movie.
Yeah.
At like a high level, it becomes competitive. Like it's not horrifying anymore, but like in terms of like a party game, it is traumatizing because one of your friends is just running around butchering the
Oh,
shit
yeah.
out of all of you. And then when you catch one of them, you put them on a hook, like a meat hook, and then they
Yeah.
just sit there and struggle. And like it's so traumatizing. But that like kicks back to those old like 80s, 70s. Because nowadays newer horror movies just it's kind of weird because games are getting scary. Horror movies aren't getting scary. They're getting more like
predictable.
That's true.
predictable and
Yeah.
disgusting. Like
Yeah.
they're becoming
we're in like
gory.
a
about
gore
gore.
horror,
Yeah.
you know?
Like let's slaughter people left and right, and you're like, I don't necessarily want to watch that. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to see people get cut up. That's not scary. It's just gross to me. You know,
Yeah.
like cut the centipede. Human centipede is a good example. Like I don't need
Oh my
that in my
God.
life. You know.
It's such a just absolutely gratuitously disgusting movie that did not need to exist in
I mean,
any facet.
if you think about the premise, that was probably the point they were going for.
oh yeah, I mean,
they
if
hit
you,
it though.
if
They
you
hit it
if you
hard.
read the description of the movie whenever you saw it on Netflix or whatever, I don't think Netflix would have carried that shit. But
I think
like,
it had it for a very
Did it
little
really?
time. It had
I
know
don't
I had
remember
2.
where I watched it. I wish I could have remembered where
I think
I
it was on
originally watched
Netflix
it.
for a little while.
But if you read the description of that movie and then decide to watch it, that's on you, man. Like you can't expect that to be a fucking good movie. It's like Rubber. If you read the description on Rubber and think that's going to be an actual
Rubber is.
really, oh my god, if you read it and think it's going to be like intellectually stimulating, then just no.
Another is Teeth. Another
Teeth,
movie.
yeah.
Teeth is a good one.
Have you know Teeth?
Unfortunately,
Is that Vagina
Vagina
Dentata?
Dentata!
I watched.
Right.
I think I watched that one for the scenes where there was
A vagina in it.
eating
my sister came to me one day and she's telling me about, we're both talking about horror movies, and she's like, I just watched this movie where this girl got trapped in a dungeon and these 2 brothers were just raping the shit out of her and putting through all this stuff, and I'm like, why were you watching that? Like, what drove you to watch the entirety of this movie? Like, the moment she got raped, I would have turned it off. Like,
Yeah.
trapped in a fucking dungeon, being subjected to the most horrific things. Like, what was the drive
Yeah, and
of you?
that's another thing that always fucks me up about, like, whenever I watch horror movies, I'm cool with crazy violence that gets out of control. I'm cool with over the top shit, but if there's a super intense rape scene,
The
that
Hills
shit
Have Eyes.
always, yeah, The Hills Have Eyes is one that immediately comes to mind.
It will.
That rape
haven't
scene
seen it.
in that trailer.
I guess I'm lucky.
Or not a trailer,
shit,
but the
it's
RV
like
or
it's an
whatever.
RV.
Dude.
But
We all know it.
It's so
Oh my God.
necessary. Like it's done well. It's not like a cheap scene. Like you need that scene to really like put you in the shoes to
Oh, yeah.
dislike the hill people.
Right, absolutely. And,
it's-
it does
it's
an excellent job.
good. It's a terrible scene to
That's
watch.
exactly.
Yeah.
And no
I
matter
mean,
how like I've seen that movie, I don't know, 10 times maybe, and every time like my skin crawls. Like
Oh, absolutely.
like I know it's coming, and I'm still like, oh fuck.
So you guys know George R. R. Martin's Game of Thrones series, right? You've probably seen
Yeah.
the HBO series.
Oh yeah.
How old do you think Daenerys is?
Oh, I've read the books. I know.
All right, you read the books?
I know
How
where
old do
you're
you
going.
think she
with
is,
this.
Josh?
I haven't read the books. I know she's supposed to be underage, right? Like
How old do you think she
Daenerys?
is? Yeah.
I've never read the book.
So in the
She's
books,
supposed to be like-
she is, I quote you not, 13 when she gets
yeah,
deflowered.
I was thinking like super.
I mean, that-
Her and
when I read
Sansa
that-
are the same age.
I was super
roughly.
upset, but you
Really?
know, it builds. It's like you have to get over that because George R. R. Martin's just fucking brilliant to begin with. But that was really hard to read through. But that's just his entire
Yeah,
series.
you have to like keep in mind like all the characters are like 10 years younger in the books, and that's why a lot of the decisions that people make are
So I could
like all
see,
the
like-
Daenerys decisions. I fucking hate her in the show because
Yeah,
all
I
her
don't
decisions
like
are
her
so
either.
stupid. But when you look at it, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, she's a 14-year-old doing this. Like it's like, well,
Yeah.
it's a little bit more sense.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, they can't really. I don't know. Like, can you get away with putting that shit on TV anymore?
Well, they put the,
Even if it's
they put the
HBO.
incest scene in, I believe, when Bran saw them,
Yeah,
then fell?
but that was with adults. It wasn't with
Yeah.
children.
but it's still incest.
So when
It's still
Daenerys got
incest.
her
Yeah, it's
clothes
incest,
burnt
but
off,
incest is
she
hot
wasn't
right now.
14.
Well, she was willing to do it. Like the guy was like, "Will you do it with me?" And she was like, "Yes." But she's still 13. Like that's. But the HBO series doesn't protect her as being 13.
The HBO series
Oh, I
ages
mean,
everybody
absolutely
up quite
not.
a
Yeah.
bit.
Except for like Arya and stuff, like the
She's
younger.
aged up quite a bit. Arya, Bran, Rickon, they're all aged up quite a bit.
Not
Like,
at the beginning of the series though.
they're
They're like
aged
children,
up
aren't they?
quite a bit.
Really?
They're supposed to be really little kids. Like Rickon
Yeah.
is supposed to be like 3 or 4.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
Really?
he's a
old.
little kid. Everybody's aged up. Some more than others.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I haven't read the books, so
Arya, Bran, they're not aged up as much, but they are still aged up.
Huh.
Because
For good
apparently
reason.
originally he intended for a giant time skip after the first or second book.
Oh,
And then
okay.
logistically it just didn't. I don't know if logistically is the right word, but
Yeah.
it just didn't work out with the way he was writing it.
Labustically,
It's. I mean,
Labustically.
it's hard
Labustically.
for whenever you try to turn a book series into an actual TV series that has to happen every year. It's hard to make the aging process the same.
I mean, the TV series did well. That's
It's
for
yeah,
sure.
I mean it's
It's
still,
so
it's still
good.
really good.
That's for
Oh my
sure.
god! I mean, if they don't somehow fuck it up, personally, I believe at this point, from start to finish, the best series that's ever been made is probably Breaking Bad, in my opinion. But if they don't fuck up Game of Thrones with this final season that's coming in somehow, because no one knows what's going to happen.
Cersei is going
It
to
could
be
very
the
possibly be.
champion of everything, so everybody's gonna die.
man,
Cersei's
Ball and
gonna win.
Car.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They're like not doing canon anymore. They've kind
No,
of
they've
yeah,
been,
they've
they've been
been
off
surpassed what
the
he's
whole
written.
last
Yeah.
season. Essentially, the whole last season was out of.
Yeah.
It was off book, which
Yeah.
is why smart characters like Tyrion and Littlefinger and Varys are so sparse in that season
Okay,
because
that makes sense.
they cannot write them like Martin can.
yeah.
Fucking
And they're
makes
not
sense.
as good. Like Tyrion is nowhere near as good in the last
That
season
makes sense.
as he has been. in the
Spoiler
series.
alert, Littlefinger's death was the most satisfying thing.
Yeah, that was
It
good.
was satisfying. Yeah.
Littlefinger, I don't know. In the book, he actually like empowers the books. I want him to do the stupid things he's gonna do. I want him.
Well,
To
the
see, like, where
show
his
kind of
plan
made you
goes.
feel that way
Oh,
too.
yeah,
up
he
until
was
he
definitely-
died.
Yeah, he was
way
definitely very
different.
influential.
His storyline has been pretty different since like season 3 or 4. It started
Okay.
to.
I haven't actually watched. I've only read the books, to be honest.
Oh, really?
But the books, like,
it's veered. They've made some big changes.
okay. I mean, I don't.
To get rid of minor characters that are unnecessary, I'll say, without giving
okay.
away like big spoilers
No, I
for
understand.
anybody reading or listening who hasn't read or wants to read. But
Yeah, that was a lot of Game of Thrones spoilers thrown out there. I mean, it's been going for a while, guys. You've been hearing that it's great. If you're somehow listening and something got spoiled, then
The
please.
show has always made you
Yeah, it's still worth watching.
It's
and
so
reading,
good.
for that matter.
like the
Both.
good guys can never do good, and they're all gonna
Yep.
die.
Fucking Oberon, man.
The last
Oberyn.
season is going to be that Cersei kills everybody, and she's gonna succeed.
Yeah.
the
No
Valonqar.
way.
The
Yes.
Valonqar.
Don't
If I can
do it.
give-
She's gonna get killed by the little brother. The
Any-
prophecy is already in motion.
Any good
Her
takeaway?
children are gone.
If you could
the
think of a
little
character
brother.
you hate
It's
the
true.
most,
It's gonna
that
be- it's
character
gotta
is
be
going
Jaime,
to
too.
be
It has
the
to
most
be.
successful.
It has to be
Clegane
Jamie.
Bowl. Clegane Bowl. Get hype.
That's how
gotta-
it is.
it's
I mean,
gotta happen.
the series.
You think so?
I
You
don't
think
know.
it'll happen?
I don't know.
It's not built around good and evil. It's built around just people doing what
Shades
people
of
do.
Grey.
it's
That's
people
what's
show.
so good
So
about it.
I've got-
that is
you-
what's good about
And
it.
like you said you haven't seen the show, and I hope you are okay with me talking
no,
about
I'm fine.
this. But
Yeah.
like, whenever the Mountain and Oberyn fight, that was one of the most ridiculous
My
fights.
wife
ever.
cried.
It was 100%. The whole time I'm watching this fight, right? Oberyn's supposed to be the good guy, but he's acting like a normal bad guy. He's like dancing around and talking about how much cooler he is and beating him and like taunting him.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
whole
it's
point.
the whole thing. It's like he fights him just the same way that a normal bad guy does
Yep.
when he thinks that he's got the good guy down. The good guy's laying on the ground. He's like, you're at my fucking mercy. Now say what I want you to say, that kind of shit. And then he ends up losing. It's like the total reverse of what we're used to seeing.
That's the whole show. That's what
It's
that's
so
what I'm
good.
saying. Is
Yeah, like-
Cersei's gonna win everything?
The whole thing
Cersei's
is
gonna
there's
win.
no
Don't say that.
She's going
Don't say
to.
that.
Like, there's-
That's gonna be the finale.
like I've played this drunk game. Like there's no good and evil in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Every character is
exactly.
a shade of gray.
Yep.
Everyone
Yeah.
thinks they're
Somebody's
the
a lighter
protagonist.
gray. Some characters are darker
Exactly.
gray, but everybody's a shade of gray. Like nobody is good, nobody is bad.
Yeah.
And that's a
To an extent.
Yeah, that's
I
a
would say
conversation.
The Mountain is probably inherently evil. I
Yeah,
think he's probably an
maybe.
inherently evil character.
See, and that's a conversation I've had before, and I would be willing to talk about again. Is I love the idea that whenever people look at characters as villains, if those characters themselves don't see themselves as villains, they see themselves as the protagonist of the situation, and that can be argued from almost any standpoint. Because I had this conversation with my wife, particularly about Batman and Joker, right? So I challenged her to come up with a villain that she would say does not see themselves as the good guy in the situation. You know what I mean? Like, from your own point of view, if you're the bad guy, you think you're the good guy. And so she came up with Batman and Joker.
The Nazis thought they were good guys.
Exactly.
That
That's exactly what I'm talking
groupthink
They
about.
had
Yeah.
skulls in their hats.
Like, how fucked up is that? The people that are bad guys think they're doing the better choice. Like they think they're on the good side of history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that's so she brought up Batman and Joker, and I was like, that's easy to me personally because Joker believes in chaos. He thinks that chaos is the most logical explanation on how to deal with our world. So that's what he tries to inject into society is because he thinks because we got civilized and all this shit, it's made us not as good. So he tries to make everything chaotic again. That's the Joker. He intentionally wants, like he tries to make Batman kill him. Like he wants Batman to kill him. You know what I mean? So that's like what it's fucked up.
Chaotic evil.
It's fucked
I was
up.
gonna say, like, I would argue the Joker is a chaotic evil character. Like, he's not doing it because he thinks it's right. He's doing it because he wants to have fun, and that's how he wants to have fun.
Yeah.
Like, I would-
Really?
That's what I would think. Yeah, I mean, he's the exact opposite of Batman. Like they're little foils to each other.
But do you think that he? I don't know. I've always gotten the impression from Joker is that he tries to. He thinks that the world of chaos is the better way to live in general instead of living by rules.
Yeah, but I also don't think he would think he's the protagonist. Like, he knows that he's doing bad things.
That's probably true. That's
Like,
probably
he,
true.
he knows he does bad things, and he does it because he likes it. Because
I mean, I
he's
would
the
agree
Joker.
with you that separating that evil versus good is really hard because it all boils down to like subjectivity.
It does. Yeah.
Like the Joker is doing what he does, but he wouldn't. He would, in his mind, consider it truly inherently evil. But he's doing it for fun. So he has to fight against someone, and he chooses Batman for that whim.
Because he wants to commit the ultimate evil. He wants to make the guy who doesn't kill anybody kill him. That's his
Exactly.
goal. Is
That's
to,
true.
Yeah,
And like,
To
chaotic
taint
evil.
Batman. Like, that's all he wants to do is make Batman kill him.
So it's
And
not.
ruin the only truly good person in Gotham.
But-
in his eyes.
But do you think that he is doing that to prove that no one's perfect? To prove that there's not someone out there that could possibly be the true inherent good guy in all aspects? Like he's proving, he's doing his part to make sure that everyone knows that no one's perfect.
Yes, but I don't believe he sees himself doing a good thing. He's doing an evil thing to prove that nobody is good.
You
He's
could
doing the
almost
exact
like
opposite.
you could take like the perspective of Batman because Batman is the one doing the vigilante stuff. He's the one doing the things that he believes is right. Believes is right, but he's actually this guy invoking the opposite of what justice is trying to apply. And vigilantes, at least in current day, tend to cause more issues than benefits. So the superhero of the series is kind of the bad guy. I mean, he's catching the bad guys, but he's also doing his own bad guy stuff. And they make that very clear. But he's of course it's DC and superheroes, and so he's still the winner. Mm-hmm. But he's going against the justice system that has been, or admittedly, Gotham's justice system is very corrupt. So it's not really a good statement.
Yeah.
That's probably just not a good foundation for evil versus good to begin with, because that entire philosophy is all broken.
It's a very liberal interpretation of good.
Yeah, very, very
He does
liberal.
what
Even
is-
bad. Yeah.
Like, people, although not legally correct, would consider what Batman does good. He doesn't hurt normal, kind people. He takes down the bad people, the ones who are causing pain and destruction in the city.
Yeah.
Although not correct
So, like-
legally, but the legal system can't do it in Gotham City.
Let's say like
Well, do you think that's what Dexter does too then?
I would say that Dexter is a better point of what you were trying to make. He inherently believes what he's doing is good.
Yeah.
yeah.
He's more making the best of a bad situation. He knows
And we're
he needs
talking about Dexter Showtime, not
Dexter
Dexter.
Morgan.
Not Dexter's Laboratory.
That's a good series. Why not?
like he knows he has this compulsion. He's gonna kill people, so he makes the best of it and kills bad people most of the time. I feel like there's been a couple. I
That
haven't
was a
seen
weird
it in a while.
series.
But
Yeah,
he
it's-
killed a couple people. I think.
Yeah, I feel like that was more because they were trying to switch up the storytelling, but the character itself has definitely been taught. Like literally, his dad was a cop in the show. So if you haven't seen Dexter yet and you're getting mad about spoilers,
Yeah.
then that
It's been
that
off the
show
air
is
for
really
10
fucking
years.
old. So
So I think like the Batman analogy maybe is too far disassociated because that's almost too unrealistic. Like, you've got your clear lines of evil and good, and even then, it's like more evil versus evil.
Yeah.
Whereas, like with Dexter, you have more of a realistic.
You've got Dokes versus Dexter, season
Right.
1, 2, maybe.
Oh god, that was so good.
Dokes is a good guy.
He is, yeah.
He's
That's
doing
so
what
good.
he can to uphold law and do it the right way. And then there's Dexter, who's killing all these people, but he thinks he's doing the right thing. He's killing bad people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm killing the bad people. You guys couldn't take this child molester, whatever, Rorschach.
Yep.
You couldn't take him down, so I did. I did a good thing.
Dude, that
I'm the good
Dokes
guy.
that Dokes versus Dexter storylines is one of the best. It's so good. Have you seen Dexter?
No.
We just ruined the whole shit for you.
I don't know what is happening.
Dexter is real good.
It's
It's
pretty
really
good.
good.
It's not going to be as good now.
I feel like I'm such a.
I think
like
it
a-
would still be as good.
Pop culture. I'm such a popcorn retard. Pop culture retard.
Can't say that. We're going to have to cut that part out.
A pop culture dumb person.
I mean,
I'm a big old box of stupid when it comes
but
to
that's
pop
another
culture.
that's another thing. Like, there's so much shit to watch. Like, or partake in as far as pop culture and media goes.
Man,
There's so much to see that
spun
it's impossible.
so hard to another direction where I didn't have church, but I didn't also pop culture. So good on you guys.
How could they
Jake just rode his bike and watched a fuckload of NASCAR.
Yeah, that's
Like,
exactly what
that was the
happened.
first
Just
16
white
years of
trash from
Jake's
the
life.
top to bottom, just riding my bike in NASCAR.
Do you
Fucking
remember-
Dale Earnhardt?
Yeah, I was literally about to say that. Do you remember exactly where you were the day that Dale Earnhardt
Yeah,
died?
me and my dad were in my dad. That's the only time I've ever seen my dad cry.
Really?
My dad. That's the only time.
In his tidy
to
whities?
now. No, it wasn't his tiny whities. It's the only time I've ever actually seen my father cry. And, I think everybody talks about like the Southern father figure as being this invincible guy that farms and bad hunts and all this stuff. I didn't necessarily grow up that way, but it was, I guess it was a Midwestern father. It wasn't a Southern father. It was a Midwestern dad. Like,
Yeah, he's wearing stonewashed jeans and New Balances
Yeah.
before it was a meme.
exactly. He could do no wrong. He could fix anything. He still could fix anything. And, he rebuilt houses. He has remodeled houses. He's done cars and hot rods and all this. And a big thing for me growing up was NASCAR. I mean, every Sunday, people get up and they watch football or whatever. We were watching NASCAR. And I think when Dale Earnhardt died, that was really like that was when I was starting to grasp how big of an impact NASCAR was having on my life at that point in time. So, me and my dad played NASCAR Heat on PS2, and we played NASCAR on PS1 and all that. We played Gran Turismo, and we put out lawn chairs in the living room on the Daytona 500 in 2000 or 2001, whenever this happened, or 1999 maybe. I might have been like 10 or 9. Mm-hmm. So we put out our lawn chairs. It was weird because it was the only time that like me and my dad were like, all right, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna watch this thing. And Earnhardt hit the wall or whatever.
Most minor looking thing
It was the
ever.
most minor looking crash ever. That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
And he was like, he was in the kitchen making a sandwich. It was weird. Like, I remember exactly the whole ordeal. I was sitting in a lawn chair in the living room. He had his lawn chair. He went to the kitchen to make a sandwich. I was like, oh man, Earnhardt wrecked on the last lap. Dad came out. I was like, oh yeah, oh damn, he didn't win. But it was Michael Waltrip won, and that was his team. Earnhardt was building the team of all these people, and it was real fucked up.
Yeah.
And that night when Bill France came out and was like, we've lost Dale Earnhardt. That's the only time I've ever seen my dad watching TV, and he just walked away. He just left. And it was, I went into the room and was like, hey man, you all right? And he was my dad was sobbing in the other room. And I can't that was fucked up, man.
That's
But I mean,
crazy.
like-
For a white trash
my
family, when Earnhardt died, that's fucked up.
But I mean,
And that's the only time I've ever seen him cry.
Can you imagine? Like there haven't been that many like live deaths on TV. Like it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, he just.
Can you imagine
was
if
it.
Jordan was jumping from the free throw line and like
Just blew
knocked
his
his
head off?
head on the
Yeah.
back of the goal and
That's
like
true.
got carted off, and then after the game they're like, "Oh, Jordan broke his neck and died."
Yeah, he's dead.
Like
Yeah.
it's just
That's kind of what happened.
That's like the
It
cultural
is,
impact, something like that
especially
can
for
have.
how minor it was. Like it was a shock. It was more so a shock to everyone because of how, like no one. It's like almost no one could believe that it actually happened because the car crash was really. He'd been in way worse than that.
I mean, like celebrities die all the time, but you just don't see it happen live.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, his car wrecked, and then it rested on the infield in turn 4 or what. It was literally the last lap of the biggest race of NASCAR, and I don't remember who ran up to the car, but when you're watching it live, the guy that ran up to the car looked in the car just as anybody would, and then he was freaking the fuck out after he was calling the fucking ambulance over. He's like, "Get the fuck over here!" And you don't see that. And I mean, if you read about how he died, it's like the top part of his skull separated from like at the jaw line, away from the rest of his body.
Yeah.
And they were like,
Holy shit.
the guy described it as he was bleeding out of his eyes, his ears, his mouth. There was just blood running out of every orifice.
Oh my God.
Because when he hit the wall at 180 miles an hour,
Yeah.
his body stopped, but his head didn't stop.
Yeah.
So when his head, flew forward, it was like a basal skull. It was a basal skull fracture. So, from the bottom part of your jaw and then your skull there's like this separate line.
Yeah.
So the top part of his skull
muscle.
is
Kept
connected.
going.
Yeah.
God, that's
So
fucked.
it just snapped. I mean,
I didn't know that
dead
part of it.
instantly,
Holy shit.
man. And I can't. And the dude that ran up to the window, I don't think he was done after that. I mean, it was like,
I mean, wouldn't you be?
this is it. I'm out. I'm done. This is all for me.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy.
So yeah,
So that's pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
Keep us on
that's
topic.
horrifying. It's a white trash topic to talk about.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's not necessarily white trash.
It is,
man.
dude. I mean,
it's-
NASCAR is like frowned upon. Everyone makes fun of it. I grew up. That was, I had the Earnhardt fucking hat on at like 10,
Everybody,
11.
everybody makes fun of all kinds of shit that they shouldn't make fun of, man.
I still like every now and again just watch a NASCAR race, but I get it. It's kind of dumb. But
it's
that
racing.
was how I grew up, dude.
Yeah.
And all those guys that are racing, those drivers, like they talk to them in interviews. They're such like hometown, just like boo, boo, boo. I'm just boo boo. I'm just driving circles. That's all they know. That's all those drivers know, man. And that's just how I grew up.
Yeah.
That's NASCAR.
I mean,
how did we
I
get on
grew
this
up.
topic?
I grew up with some of that shit too. Well, I don't know.
I didn't grow up with Jesus. I grew up with Earnhardt.
and his. So you grew up with God and his son Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah, Earnhardt Jr. Exactly.
Oh boy.
So true.
Yeah, I mean,
Man.
I remember whenever that shit happened. Like when that shit happened too. There's like just a couple of events that I remember specifically where I was when that shit happened, and that's
It's
one
like
of them.
Earnhardt dying and 9/11. That's all I remember. That was the
the
same.
other
It
one.
happened in the
That's the
same
other one
year,
I was
man.
gonna list. Yeah,
It was a bad year.
yeah, yeah. And the crazy thing too is, my wife is a teacher, and the weird thing about all that shit is that's like history to the kids that she's teaching now,
Yeah.
because they have no idea, like they didn't experience 9/11 or any of that kind of stuff. So it's the same way that we kind of look at Vietnam and that kind of shit because we weren't alive for that. It's history
Vietnam
to
and
us.
Pearl
Like,
Harbor.
we didn't experience it. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like Pearl Harbor, they snuck up on us. And for kids now, it's like 9/11. Yeah, well, they snuck
Right.
up on us. They bombed the shit out of us.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so weird to think about.
Whoa. Whoa.
I was gonna say. I mean, like horrifying stuff. We've moved from movies and entertainment into,
Yeah,
into the real world.
we got super real. with some
We dropped
horrifying
the
shit.
less than and
Yeah.
went straight serious. But I was gonna say like Columbine, that happened. Was that
It did.
99?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
It was
our
a few years,
lifetime.
but I just remember like coming home and like not knowing what was going on. Same thing with like I remember talking to you on the phone on September 11th,
Yeah.
and like we're on the phone like I don't know why the news is on every channel. Like I'm trying to watch MTV and TRL's not on. They're covering. I don't know what the fuck's
They have
happening.
a death counter in the
Showing
bottom
some
left
kind
hand
of
corner.
crazy building getting blown up.
Yeah, like I remember my parents were both home when I came home from school, and I was like, "This is weird." And like we just like immediately, like me and Jack, like we would get home and like talk on the phone to each other because that's what you did when you were 10.
Yeah, man. We didn't have Facebook.
And we were both just like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. And it's like, oh, my parents are calling me to talk. Like, I'll call you back if I still have phone privileges.
I just want to watch Pokemon with you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like we didn't know what was going on.
Yu-Gi-Oh's on.
Like Columbine and 9/11, like both times, like I don't know what's happening. Like
It was all very close
man.
together. A lot of messed up stuff happened in a short time frame, I guess, for us. But I guess every generation kind of has. Well, this messed up thing happened.
There's all kind. Who
There's
knows,
all
man?
kinds. Doesn't matter.
Fucking human beings, dude.
But how do you think that that will drive the horror genre? Because before it was like, let's see, like 80s, it was slasher flicks. And like surely that was rooted in some sort of history. Like people were scared of people coming into their homes and killing them with a
Well, now
machete.
it's all mental.
Have you guys
I
seen
mean,
any of the
it's-
newer like B movie horrors? They like find a good actor and they just let them go on these long like script rants, and it's more annoying than it is like scaring. And I mean, I'm not a huge fan of B movies, but I try to like tinker in it every now and then. Netflix, Hulu, whatever, whatever's out there. But that seems to be the drive nowadays. Like people who are creating like indie approaches, because indie tends to be like the more
Adventurous.
interesting horror, yeah. And they just find this one actor and they're like, "You're so good at acting. Just read this script." And they do it and you're like, "Stop. Just stop. Like this is a monologue. It's annoying."
But like on the point of like specifically like school shootings and stuff, it's one of those like you never know like when it could happen.
That's
Like,
true.
do you think that is part of the reason behind the more psychological horror? 'Cause I feel like that is a psychological horror. Like,
It could be.
I mean, I don't work for that large of a company, but like if you worked for a big company, like can you imagine going in every day and being like, I mean, I do work for a bank, so I mean, there is always that chance. Like, what if a guy comes in and like tries to rob it and just shoots up the place? We had a scare a couple of months ago where a guy like threatened. He's like, "I'm gonna rob a bank in your town," and like they didn't call off work or anything. Like they're like, everybody comes in. If you don't come in, you might not have a job tomorrow. And so like everybody came in and like we just had to like work through the day and like wait and see if this guy came in and like he said, "I'm gonna rob a bank and it's gonna be bad." He was threatening like suicide by cop. And we're like, this guy's gonna come in and fucking shoot somebody. Like, what are we doing? But like, do you think that like weighs in on the like current genre of like psychological horror, like specifically school shootings? I mean, I feel like they're happening
I don't know.
every couple months.
I think the first writer and director that makes a movie about a school shooting,
It will never happen.
it won't happen.
I hope
No,
not.
it'll
And
never
the
happen.
closest, do you guys watch American Horror Story? It's terrible.
Regretfully.
It's a terrible show.
I watched like the first couple of
It's
seasons.
bad.
I watched
Uh,
the first
And
season. I
they,
think.
in one of them, there was a ghost guy character that he was
Yeah.
a ghost because he shot up a school, and
He was like having a romantic
yeah,
thing
some
with
romantic
the girl
thing.
that wasn't that might
right.
have been the first season, right?
No, it was a couple.
Was it
seasons.
later on?
That was the first season.
I
Because
think it
all
was,
the other
'cause it was in the
teenage
house,
ghosts
right?
didn't like him. He lived next door. He was the son of the kid next door.
Yeah.
Or the lady next door, and he
Well,
died in the house.
I mean, it just regardless of all that, it like them showing him going through the school and just fucking blasting people,
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
was
One Tree
pretty-
Hill did it,
pretty
Yeah.
amped up.
and that episode was fucking
like killed the
crazy.
teacher
Super
or whatever.
uncomfortable.
Yes, those were some rough episodes,
Didn't one of
Yeah.
the,
and it'll
uh,
we will never see that in media again.
Probably not. Yeah.
Didn't one of the I don't know if it's the
That's-
Call of Duties or Black Ops, but the
No
The
Russian.
airport one?
Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah,
no
they
Russian.
had you just shoot up an
Shoot up an
entire like
airport.
airport. And
Yeah,
you're like,
that's
what is
true,
going
too.
on? Why am I doing this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that
was
was
about the
fucked.
same time. It
Yeah.
kind of capitalized on it,
But it's good that it's still we're not so desensitized that we don't feel like an upside down stomach from it.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how many people can watch that and like not feel anything though. Like how many people in this?
That's true.
But I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird because I feel like, I mean, this all kind of leads into mental illness and stuff.
Yeah.
Too, like all the crazy shit that goes on with the mass shooters and all that kind of stuff. Like how it's just because I'm starting to get a little political, but mental illness in this country is almost laughed at and not taken seriously.
Well, we're gonna look at. Okay, so if you look at history about, you have a cough. It's 1930 and you have a cough.
Right.
What do they give you?
Morphine,
Heroin,
codeine.
Yeah, take this, eat some of this cocaine gum.
It's a literal trademark. I feel bad. What do they give you? Heroin. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the heroin that people are dying on today. It's It's heroin. Okay,
Right.
that's what Bayer invented. It was called heroin. I think that we're gonna look at that the same way that we do the medications that we're prescribing for mental illness today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Xanax or or whatever pill that you're. Xanax is the strongest thing that I can imagine.
What's the really crazy sleeping pill that like fucks people up terribly?
Ambien?
Ambien. Yeah, like people talking about going like
I just
thinking
wanna
they're
go
going
to
to sleep
sleep.
and then they fucking like go end up in another country and they don't know how they got there.
Ambien's
They,
fucked up, and it's like I
Those-
feel a little different in my head. What am I going to give you? Xanax. Okay, that's going to. Xanax is like and I know that people are supposed to take it responsibly, and it'll sort of, it'll kind of make you feel different over time, but you take a very small dosage of Xanax, and you've never taken Xanax before, it's 3 days later. I mean, it's like a fast forward pill. You just take it and then you're just gone to the
Jesus Christ.
the next day.
Yep.
And if you're supposed to be taking it in small doses, what's it supposed to do? Just sort of like slowly fast forward time. I've always called Xanax like it's a time warp pill. You take one on a Tuesday, you wake up Thursday, you're like, oh, what the fuck happened? I don't know what happened. I took a Xanax, and I feel like
that's crazy.
that's how we're hitting mental illness today. Like, yeah, you feel a little weird in your mind. Take this. Okay,
Yeah.
now it's Thursday, and
I mean,
and
it's
it
like
just turns people into zombies.
what was it like fucking 50s to 60 years ago? People were thinking that the oh my god, I'm drawing a blank again. The what's it called with the thing through the eyeball?
Lobotomies.
Lobotomies.
Oh, did you watch that documentary
like
on Netflix?
people thought lobotomies were a legitimate
it's gonna
solution.
heal you.
What the fuck?
We're just gonna scramble your frontal lobes.
Right.
How do you feel?
That's insane. What is there a documentary?
Yeah, on
I haven't-
Netflix.
I haven't
There's
seen
a
it.
documentary about
I hope
everything.
not.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
probably
there's
right.
probably a
there's
documentary about dog farts.
lobotomies, and it's super fucked. Like the little Kennedy girl,
Oh
There's a-
shit!
like one of the daughters of the Kennedys. Was
This is on
kinda,
Netflix.
Yeah, she was
Oh,
like
I'm gonna watch
hyperactive,
that.
so they got her lobotomy, and then
God
she was like this
damn.
little daughter. She was like this kid that they just tried to push away and ignore because she was a hyperactive child.
And then she was no longer a
Got a
human being.
lobotomy. Now she just drools and sits in a chair.
Exactly.
And that's the whole deal. They just and they never acknowledged that she
God,
existed after that.
That's
they just
fucked
put her in a
up,
room.
dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the progression of science, though.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
they. That's
At the
I think that's where we
time-
are with mental health still.
Yeah.
Like we are still basically prescribing lobotomy pills
Yeah.
for people that have like legitimate mental illness.
Well, I, hate
I
to
think
tell
we
you
are
guys,
making strides, but it's still not
It's
taking.
it's a
So-
very
it's
primitive
taking
science.
way too long because people don't take it seriously
maybe
enough.
in other countries, but in America, medicine is very commercialized.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Everything's
capitalism plays a
commercialized.
huge.
That's fucking
right?
America to the
And
T.
that's America,
What are you
right?
talking
So
about?
when you
Sell
think
that
about
shit.
doctors trying to find appropriate solutions, you got to think about the dollar value placed on it.
How much is it
So,
worth?
Yes, lobotomized pills are pretty strong in this environment.
And that's
Pretty
all.
damn
That's
strong.
true. That's. I mean, I don't regularly smoke marijuana, but that's like one of the main reasons why that shit's not getting legal is because it's all the pharmaceutical companies are in the background like lining the pockets of these politicians to make sure that they don't vote for something that grows out of the ground that works better than the shit they sell.
What kind of things is this gonna prevent us from
It's so
profiting
weird.
on?
I would actually like take the inverse view of that. They don't want it because of religious reasons or maybe even like political strong point reasons. They're like,
I will do you
"We
one better,
need-"
and I think it's both.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
I agree.
Yeah,
Why is Gamora?
Right. Wait, what? What'd you say?
Because weed makes you wanna fuck.
It makes the frogs gay.
I mean, you look at how other countries have commercialized weed, and it allows them to regulate certain things like the THC content in it, which then reduces like the per consumption value, so people won't reach that like psychedelic mass with marijuana. But then America, like, why are we doing what we're doing? It's never a good reason. Yeah. I mean, I love my country, but it's never a good it's political.
Yeah.
That's the only way to put it.
Always.
It's political.
Yeah.
And that has no justification, no solid answer. It's just that it's political. And we just have to accept it.
yeah, you missed the deep cuts.
We
from
have to
episode
accept
one.
it.
Anyway, so we touched on Jesus.
We went from video game horrifying to real life horrifying to politically horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the horror episode. We're 2 months late.
Yeah, it's the Halloween episode.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. It's
With
Halloween.
Dale Earnhart
Merry
bleeding from his
Christmas.
eyeballs and how Jesus is scary.
Oh, fuck, this is going to be the Christmas episode.
It'll be, yep.
Should have thought that through. We're going to do a special.
Ding dong.
get together.
Yeah, we're going to
Gotta
get
do an
together and
uplifting
make a
one.
real
Have to
Christmas
make a
episode.
song or something.
This
Anyway.
is the super late Halloween episode.
Of the Less Than Serious podcast. We hope that you all enjoyed it. Please join us next time for another episode where maybe we will be slightly more or less than serious.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get some smooches
Smoochies.
Smooches.
Smoochies, boochies.
From who?
from you.
From our wives.
Oh,
From our lady
I don't
wives.
have a wife.
Anyway, love you guys. This is the end of the fourth episode of the Less Than Serious podcast.
Third
See you guys next
episode.
time. Bye.
Can this ever be enough outside of it all? How long's it gonna take